Alright guys, we are back. You're listening to Key Talk Radio 1640 AM. This is the show, Utah Home Sweet Home. And as we have been talking about for the first half of this show, is basically determining what the ARV is on a property. ARV meaning after repair value on a property, so that you can decide what you can sell a home for after you fix it up. You know, these shows that we watch on HGTV, where they go in there and do full-blown remodels, is something that looks fun, and quite frankly, it is fun. It's really fun. I've always been a creative-minded individual. I've always enjoyed more of an artistic type of activity, and I like, it's like an art project. I like taking an ugly house and making it the prettiest house in the neighborhood. And so, in order to figure out how we can, figure out basically which opportunities are going to be good opportunities to do this, we talked about the analysis of determining what you could resell it for, minusing backtracking to what you can buy it for. So if you've missed any part of that, definitely go to our social media, basically www.utahhomesweethome.com. You can click on the YouTube channel. We film all these shows so that you can rewatch any of them in case you missed it. Also, Key Talk Radio creates a podcast of all the shows that are on Key Talk, so if you missed it, you can also go to Key Talk's podcast as well. Okay, so wanted to share basically a big announcement, for me at least. I have been kicking the idea around for a very, very long time about bottling my wife's salad dressing, okay? But I know nothing about the food industry. Now, I normally wouldn't take on a project that's going to be so time-consuming, so exhausting, such a marathon, unless I really, really believed in it. And I'll tell you, everybody who's ever tasted my wife's salad dressing literally loved it. Like, everybody. There wasn't anyone who was like, wow, this salad dressing, like for them to actually make a comment, like no one asked them, hey, what do you think about the salad dressing, right? No one asked them. But like literally when we host parties, everybody asks, hey, what salad dressing is this? And it's just basically a salad dressing that my wife makes. So, I mean, over the years, over the decade, longer than that, because I've known my wife, gosh, a long time, almost 20 years. So over the almost decades, everybody who's ever tasted the salad dressing really, really enjoys it. And I invented a product called the Snap Leash. Invented this product a long time ago. Now, I'll tell you the story really quickly here of how I came with the idea of the Snap Leash and why I didn't want to, jump in and start bottling my wife's salad dressing right off the bat. For those of you who have heard this show before, you may know that I used to be a hairstylist to the stars in New York City. I used to cut Anderson Cooper's hair on a regular basis, every 3 weeks. I lived in New York City for 18, 19 years. That's where I met my wife. She's from New York City. And so I would go into the CNN studios, I would go over to Anderson Cooper's house, I would go pretty much wherever he needed me to go because he was always on the go, flying from one part of the country to the other reporting news. And so I was his personal hairstylist, also did people like Matthew Broderick, Joan Osborne. And so in a previous life, I was a hairstylist to the stars in New York City before I ever got involved in real estate. Then, one day, I'm walking to the subway on 94th in Amsterdam. For those of you who have been to New York City or know it, 94th in Amsterdam is where I lived. It was 2 blocks from Central Park, so it was a phenomenal neighborhood. I really love the neighborhood. Upper West Side, basically, for those of you who have ever seen the show, Seinfeld. Where I lived is basically the neighborhood that Seinfeld takes place in. Okay, so I was leaving my house. I had actually left my apartment, walked to the corner of 94th in Amsterdam, which is the corner of where my apartment building was, and I was actually on my way to cut Anderson Cooper's hair, believe it or not. And I'm standing there on the corner of 94th in Amsterdam, and I'm looking across the street, and across the street is a bodega. Now, for those of you who don't know what a bodega is, because we grew up in Utah, because I didn't know what a bodega was until I moved to New York City. Bodega is like a mini grocery store, kind of like a convenience store. You could almost, some people might even compare it to like a 7-Eleven, but bodegas are typically run by mom and pops, and so unlike a 7-Eleven, where every 7-Eleven that you walk into, they all have the same feel because it's the same design that they have to build a 7-Eleven with. Bodega, they all feel a little bit different, but for the most part, it's a mini grocery store. So across the street is this bodega, and there is a young lady, gosh, I don't know, maybe 110, 120 pounds, petite young lady, probably in her 20s, across the street, who's trying to tie her big golden retriever to a pole. It was a parking, no, it wasn't a parking meter, it was a big light post. Because she wanted to go inside the bodega to buy a coffee. So she was struggling tying this big dog around the pole. Because the dog doesn't want to be tied, it's pulling, and she's pulling, and they're having a tug of war, and the dog is winning. And as I'm standing across the street, I think to myself, gosh, there's got to be an easier way to secure your pup quickly, safely, and easily for a quick run into the bodega and out, or run into the bank and out. You know, because in New York City, just for those who've never been there, we don't have yards, right? So we don't when we have a dog, it's not like we open up the back door and the dog goes and gets a little bit of exercise in the backyard. We have apartments. So we take our dogs everywhere, to the bank, to the post office, get groceries, wherever we're going to go run errands, so the dog gets exercise. And you'll see a lot of dogs secured, typically on a parking meter or a light post, but for a very, very short time. Nobody's going in grocery shopping for, 20 minutes and leaving their dog out. It's like literally running in, grabbing a bottle of water or something, coming back out. And you'll see that in a lot of food venues, because you can't take dogs into food venues. So little, like a bodega or little bakeries, you'll see dogs secured outside. So in my head I'm thinking, man, there's got to be an easier way to secure a pup. And as she finally gets the dog tied up and goes into the store and gets her coffee, but by this point the lights turn green and I'm crossing it now, and she comes back out, and she's got her coffee in hand, and the whole time she's inside the coffee shop, or the bodega I should say, getting her coffee, this dog is pulling that knot tighter and tighter that, on the leash that she tied. And so now she comes out, she's got her purse in one hand, a coffee in another hand. Now she has to untie this knot. Is she going to put her purse on the dirty ground or her coffee on the dirty ground? And now she's got to get her dog to continue on her way. And I'm thinking, gosh, there's got to be an easier way to now unsecure your pup. And instantly, the concept of the snap leash came to me in my head. And I thought to myself, wow, that would be amazing. Someone should do that, right? Like, how many times have you guys had a good idea and thought, wow, someone should invent that? Because I'm not in the pet industry. I was a hairstylist. I was going to cut Anderson's hair. I'm not going to invent a dog leash. So after that day, because of the concept now being in my head, I started to notice more and more and more dogs being tied up to poles or parking meters out in New York City.